Is it on? Okay. All right. Happy Sabbath. Hello, everyone. I'm Lee. Having some technical difficulties. I unplugged my webcam and plugged it back in. Now it's having all kind of issues, but kind of got it going a little bit here. So I'll go ahead and do this. I don't want to spend all the time trying to fix the webcam. We ended in chapter 82 last time, and this is chapter 83 of Enoch. I've already well proven in previous videos that this was scripture, considered scripture, and used as scripture by the Messiah, the apostles, the prophets, some of the early church, including Tertullian, before Rome and Constantine stomped out the truth, got rid of the Hebrews, and got rid of Enoch. So, in the last generation, it looks like it's been given back to us. So, we can study it. It's written to the last generation. He tells you in chapter 1, written to those that will be living in the day of tribulation, when the wicked and godless are to be removed. And when you read Daniel chapter 12, thou, Daniel, close these words and seal the book to the time of the end until many are taught and knowledge is increased. And when the dispersion is ended, they shall know all these things. That's at the end. Michael, stand up. Time of tribulation, great tribulation. Such tribulation has not been from the time that there was a nation on the earth until that time. At that time thy people shall be delivered. Who's that? That's Israel. And if you're grafted in, Ephesians 2 and Romans 11, you're Israel also. No Jew or Gentile. That's what Paul said. So if you're not Jew or Gentile, what are you? Israel. Even everyone that is written in the book. What book? The book of life. There's the resurrection. When does that happen? At Messiah's return. So, this is Enoch 83. And I'm going to go through here a couple things right quick. This is the R.H. Charles Ethiopian translation. It's one of the better Ethiopian translations, but it's still translated out of the Ethiopian. So that being said, the Dead Sea Scrolls have corrected a lot of readings, and if you want to look through that, Charlesworth includes some of the different readings of manuscripts. The Hermenia includes Dead Sea Scrolls, different manuscripts that have been found since. LeviteBible.com. This is a good translation, but it's still translated from R.H. Charles in the Ethiopian, so it doesn't have the corrected readings in it. Also, Sefer is translated out of Nib, Lawrence, and Charles, and it uses some of the inferior readings that Charles corrected. So, not a very good translation. That being said, no translation is perfect, but it's good to check different things. Let me look at this. Green. Did that fix it? Nope. That bugs me. 4. Nope, way down. 450 is a little closer. Nope. Maybe that's better. Nope. Ah, man. That better? That's horrendous. Nope. Yep. Maybe if I move the light back, I don't know. I don't know if that'll work or not. Maybe that'll work. Yeah. Whoa. Yeah, I tried to fix it beforehand for about 30 minutes and does not want to work very good. Let's try that. 454. Color reduction. That looks a little better. Yeah. Maybe that'll work. Okay. All right. So, that being said, I don't think a lot of people realize the text that lies under our English translations, and they just take the English translation and run with it. So, pull this up some more. Okay. All right. So, we're doing chapter 83. Hopefully, no more technical difficulties. All right. And now, my son Methuselah, will show thee all my visions, which I have seen, recounting them before thee. 2 visions I saw before I took a wife, and the one was quite unlike the other. The first one I was learning to write. So the first one he was learning to write, he saw a vision, as the prophets do. A lot of people try to discredit Enoch by taking scripture out of context. They'll say, but it calls him the Son of Man. He's not the Messiah. Well, it called Ezekiel the Son of Man too, right? And Abraham saw in a vision. All right, so Enoch's not the only one having visions here. Okay. Still having a difficulty here. Let's see. I can see letters behind my head here. I don't know which one to put it on. Oh, that's way up there. Okay. There's 80. 100. I can leave that. 60. Why is my... Okay, there it went. Trying to get it more smooth, but I don't want to be able to see. Okay. All right, I guess we'll go with that. All right, you'll see. Yep. And he made himself known to Moses in a vision. Job says in a vision here, in a dream, in a vision of the night. Ezekiel in a vision. Daniel in a vision. See that in the New Testament, right? And go to the book of Jubilees. Quoted as Torah and used as Torah by the Levites in the Dead Sea Scrolls. No, they're not Essenes, they're Levites. If you read them and ignore man, you would know that. So, Jubilees 4. All right, so in verse 16, in the 11th Jubilee, Yered, no J back then, took to himself a wife, and her name was Baraka, the daughter of Rasugiel, a daughter of his father's brother, in the 4th week of this Jubilee, and she bare him a son in the 5th week, in the 4th year of the Jubilee, and he called his name Enoch. And he was the first among men that are born on the earth who learnt writing and knowledge and wisdom, and who wrote down the signs of heaven according to their order of their months in a book, that men might know. Why did he write that in a book? That men might know the seasons of the years according to the order of their separate months. So he gave us the calendar. That's why Enoch wrote it in a book. And he was first to write a testimony, and he testified to the sons of men according to the generations of the earth, and recounted the weeks of the jubilees, and made known to them the days of the years, and set in order the months, and recounted the Sabbaths of the years, as we made them known to him. Right? So the watchers made known to him. And what was and what will be, he saw in a vision of his sleep, as it will happen to the children of men throughout their generations until the day of judgment. That's what we're going to read. He saw and understood everything, and wrote his testimony, and placed a testimony on earth for all the children of men and for their generations. In the 12th Jubilee, in the 7th week thereof, he took to himself a wife, and her name was Edna, the daughter of Daniel, the daughter of his father's brother. And in the 6th year, in this week, she bare him a son, and he called his name Methuselah. And he was moreover with the angels, the messengers, watchers. They translated angels, but you see up here it is watchers. The Aramaic says watchers. He was more with the watchers of Elohim, these 6 jubilees of years, and they showed him everything which is on the earth and in the heavens, the rule of the sun, and he wrote down everything. And he testified to the watchers who had sinned with the daughters of men, for these have begun to unite themselves so as to be defiled with the daughters of men, and Enoch testified against them all. And he was taken from amongst the children of men, and we conducted him into the Garden of Eden in majesty and honor, and behold, there he writeth down the condemnation and judgment of the world, and all the wickedness of the children of men. And on account of it, Elohim brought the waters of the flood. On account of what? Wickedness of the children of men. Waters of the flood upon all the land of Eden, for there he was set as a sign that he should testify against all the children of men, that he should recount all the deeds of the generations until the day of condemnation. And he burnt the incense of the sanctuary. So Enoch burnt incense of the sanctuary, even sweet spices acceptable before Yahuwah on the mount. What mount? The holy mount. He has 4 holy places on earth. For Yahuwah hath 4 places on earth, the Garden of Eden, the Mount of the East, and the Mount of the East. So that's interesting. Eden's in the east, and the Mount of the East. And this mountain on which thou art this day, Mount Sinai. He's talking about Moses and the Israelites, and Mount Zion, which will be sanctified in new creation for a sanctification of the earth. Through it will the earth be sanctified from all its guilt and its uncleanness throughout the generations of the world. So it tells you who he's talking to right here. He's given Jubilees, the book of the divisions of times and law. That's what the name of the book is. They just name it Jubilees. But that's the real name of the book, Mount Sinai. So that's where he was given the law on Mount Sinai. What was it in Acts? He said, you were given the law by angels and have not kept it. Or watchers. So the first vision he saw when he was learning to write. The second, before I took thy mother, when I saw a terrible vision. So we just seen that it talked about him taking Methuselah's mother. As we see here in the 14th Jubilee, Methuselah took unto himself a wife, Edna, the daughter of Ezrael. And regarding them I prayed to Yahuwah. I had laid me down in the house of my grandfather Mahalalel. Happy Sabbath, Rosie. And hope your Sabbath's going good. House of my grandfather Mahalalel. When I saw in a vision how the heaven collapsed and was borne off and fell to the earth. And when it fell to the earth, I saw how the earth was swallowed up in a great abyss, and mountains were suspended on mountains, and hills sank down on hills, and high trees were rent from their stems, and hurled down and sunk in the abyss. And thereupon a word fell into my mouth, and I lifted up my voice and cried aloud, and said, the earth is destroyed. And my grandfather Mahalalel waked me as I lay near him, and said unto me, why dost thou cry so, my son? And why dost thou make such lamentation? And I recounted to him the whole vision which I had seen. And he said unto me, a terrible thing hast thou seen, my son, and of grave moment is thy dream vision as to the secrets of all the sin of the earth. It must sink into the abyss and be destroyed with the great destruction. And now, my son, arise and make petition to Yahuwah of glory, since thou art a believer. So Enoch was a believer. Why is he having a vision? Why is he getting instruction from the angels? That a remnant may remain on the earth, and that he may not destroy the whole earth. So pray. Make petition. Pray. My son, from heaven all this will come upon the earth, and upon the earth there will be a great destruction. After that I arose and prayed and implored and besought and wrote down my prayer for the generations of the world, and I will show everything to thee, my son Methuselah. And when I had gone forth below and seen the heaven, and the sun rising in the east, and the moon setting in the west, and a few stars in the whole earth, and everything as he had known it in the beginning, then I blessed Yahuwah of judgment, and extolled him because he had made the sun to go forth from the windows of the east, and he ascended and rose on the face of the heaven, and set out and kept traversing the path shown unto him. You'll see. Taken. I know I've already went over this stuff, but for those new or that haven't heard it before, so you see Genesis 5:21. Enoch lived 65 years and begot Methuselah. Careful with the years in the Masoretic text; they're not completely accurate. But Enoch is. So he walked with Elohim after he begot Methuselah 300 years and begot sons and daughters. So that'd be 365. And all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with Elohim, and he was not, for Elohim took him. Gone. Taken. That's how holy Enoch was. And why was he holy? Because he made him holy. Nobody's holy without him. He made Enoch's spirit and put it into his body. So he took Enoch. He was pleased with Enoch. You'll see here he had this testimony. Hebrews 11:5. By faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death. Translated. That's the English translation of a Greek word translated out of a Hebrew word or Aramaic. That he should not see death, and was not found, because Elohim had translated him, or taken. For before his translation he had this testimony that he pleased Elohim. And Elijah which? Yep. Yeah, that's interesting here. You know, it says in Hebrews, he maketh his angels ministers of flaming fire, or his ministers of flaming fire. I think Psalms also too. But you'll see chariots of fire round about Elisha. And the seraphim in Hebrew means burning ones. Lots and lots of connections. Where is it at? Let me look it up. Elijah. He was taken the same way Enoch. Yep. 2 Kings 2:1. It came to pass when Yahuwah would take up Elijah into heaven by a whirlwind. See, by a whirlwind, that Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal. And you can look over here. Most people don't dig that deep, but look at the Greek and Hebrew words. Of course, I spent an hour trying to fix my webcam, all messed up. Now my throat's sorry. All right, so Strong's H452. Elijah. So Aleph, Lamed, Yod, Hey. And I went to the wrong word, didn't I? Yep. Whirlwind. Sorry. H5591. Sa'ar. And it is tempest, storm, whirlwind, tempest. And then you can go down here and look at all the different passages the word's used in. And, yeah. So there's all the different passages. I like this here. Jacinius Hebrew Chaldee Lexicon. Yep, 2 Kings 2:11. It came to pass as they still went on and taught, and behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted both them asunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. See, chariots of fire. Yahuwah answered Job out of the whirlwind. All right, so pray for the generous. And I went when I had gone forth below and seen the heaven and the sun rising in the east. Gotcha. Yep. I already read that. All right, chapter 84. And I lifted up my hands in righteousness and blessed the Holy and Great One and spake with the breath of my mouth and with the tongue of flesh. And you'll see in the words of Levi in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I'm not sure if that part's preserved in the Dead Sea Scrolls or they used a manuscript from a monastery to fill in the blanks, but at the beginning of the words of Levi, he lifts up his hands in righteousness. So he cleans himself, his garments, he washes, and he lifts up his hands in righteousness and praise. Up hands. Say Psalms 134:2. Lift up your hands in the sanctuary and bless Yahuwah. Paul talks about it too. He spread forth his hands in the midst of them. Well, I know. Pretty sure lifting up. How did Paul say it? Yep. Yeah, there we go. 1 Timothy 2:8. I will therefore that men pray everywhere, lifting up holy hands without wrath and doubting. And blessed the Holy and Great One, spake with the breath of my mouth, with the tongue of flesh, which Elohim hath made for the children of the flesh of men, that they should speak therewith. And he gave them breath and a tongue and a mouth, that they should speak therewith. Blessed be thou, O Yahuwah, King, great and mighty in thy greatness, Master of the whole creation of the world, of the heaven, King of kings and Elohim of the whole world. Elohim is just a Hebrew word for God. In thy power and kingship and greatness abide forever and ever, and throughout all generations thy dominion, and all the heavens are thy throne forever, and the whole earth thy footstool forever and ever. Earth thy footstool. I mean, you can systematically go through Enoch and find so many parallels in Scripture. Acts 7:49, heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. What house will you build me, saith Yahuwah, or what is the place of my rest? For thou hast made, and also, have you ever seen a globe footstool or a ball footstool? Most time footstool is what? Something you can put your feet on? Flat. For thou hast made, and thou rulest all things, and nothing is too hard for thee. Wisdom departs not from the place of thy throne, nor turns away from thy presence. And thou knowest and seest and hearest everything, and there is nothing hidden from thee, for thou seest everything. And now the watchers of thy heavens are guilty of trespass, and upon the flesh of men abideth thy wrath until the great day of judgment. And now, O Yahuwah, or O Elohim, and Yahuwah, and great King, I implore and beseech thee to fulfill my prayer, to leave me a posterity on earth, and not destroy all the flesh of man, and make the earth without inhabitant, so that there should be an eternal destruction. So now, my master, destroy from the earth the flesh which has aroused thy wrath, but the flesh of righteousness and uprightness establish as a plan of the eternal seed, and hide not thy face from the prayer of thy servant, O Yahuwah. Let's look in here. These prayers that the patriarchs prayed, wow. Just amazing prayers. Yep. So that in this one here, they'll have a footnote, Charles, at the bottom. I probably can't see it, but that's the Hermenia translation. It just gives a footnote of what Charles had translated. Human tongue, fleshed. Yep, they have a commentary that discusses textual problems and stuff. What different manuscripts say. Yep, so 85. Yep. Just want to check, see if there's any major differences. A ball, footstool flying in odd circles through the universe at crazy speeds. Yeah. If you told me this stuff 4 years ago, I would have said you're crazy. It's a globe. I know it's a globe. Now I'm like, how could I be so stupid to believe that? They put a globe in the classroom in kindergarten. You see a globe, ball earth, from when you're little. It's in your mind from when you're a little child. How hard can that be to get over that? Very hard. My head hurt for 2 or 3 weeks. He started showing me stuff. I'm like, Yep. Yeah, beautiful prayers. Yep. And after this, I saw another dream, Enoch 85, and I will show the whole dream to thee, my son. And Enoch lifted up his voice and spake to his son Methuselah, to thee, my son, will I speak. Hear my words, incline thine ear to the dream vision of thy father. Before I took thy mother Edna, I saw in a vision on my bed, and behold, a bull came forth from the earth, and that bull was white, and after it came forth a heifer. And along with this latter came forth 2 bulls, Cain and Abel. Eve, Adam. And just because it says white doesn't mean Adam's white. It means he's pure. Okay? One of them black, that's Cain, not pure. And the other red like the earth. And that black bull gored the red one and pursued him over the earth, and thereupon I could no longer see that bull, so we know Cain killed Abel. But that black bull grew, and that heifer went with him, and I saw that many oxen proceeded from him, which resembled and followed him. So this may be the daughter, not Eve. It's kind of confusing that the heifer went with Cain, and then they had many. I was thinking the heifer's Eve, but it couldn't be Eve. If you go to, let's see. Yep, so here's the account of Cain and Abel. Abel brought a righteous sacrifice. So how could Abel bring the right sacrifice if there's no law? There was law. How could Adam be a white bull if there's no law? Elohim hath raised up a second seed unto us on the earth instead of Abel, for Cain slew him. And Cain took a woman, his sister, to be his wife, and she bare him Enoch at the close of the 4th Jubilee. And in the first year of the first week of the 5th Jubilee, houses were built on the earth, and Cain built a city and called its name after the name of his son Enoch, not the same Enoch. And that cow, that first one, went from the presence of that first bull in order to seek that red one, but found him not, and lamented with a great lamentation over him, and sought him. And I looked till that first bull came to her and quieted her, and from that time onward she cried no more. And after that she bore another white bull, that will be Seth. And after him she bore many bulls and black cows. And I saw in my sleep that white bull likewise grow and become a great white bull. And from him proceeded many white bulls, and they resembled him. And they began to beget many white bulls, which resembled them, one following the other, even many. 86. And again I saw with mine eyes as I slept, and I saw the heaven above, and behold, a star fell from heaven, and it arose and ate and pastured among those oxen. And after that I saw large and the black oxen, and behold, they all changed their stalls and pastures and their cattle, and began to live with each other. And again I saw in the vision, and looked toward the heaven, and behold, I saw many stars descend and cast themselves down from heaven to that first star, and they became bulls amongst those cattle, and pastured with them amongst them. And I looked at them and saw, and behold, they all let out their privy members like horses, and began to cover the cows of the oxen, and they all became pregnant, and bare elephants and camels and asses. That is the giants. Genesis 6 came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of Elohim saw that the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Those the watchers. If you go to Giza Verms, Dead Sea Scrolls translation. I think it's in Giza Verms. Let's see. Anyways, one of the Dead Sea Scrolls has elephants, camels, and asses, but we'll go to Jubilees. See that it tells you straight up the angels came, descended on the earth, named the Watchers, and where's it at? So the days of Noah. Okay, so here the angels saw the women were beautiful, took wives, bearing them sons that were giants. See, were giants. Lawlessness increased on the earth, and all flesh corrupted its way. That's what brought the flood, and that's what's going to bring the fire judgment next. Everything that walked on the earth corrupted their ways and orders. That's the DNA changing stuff, and thoughts of all men was evil continually. All men had all flesh had corrupted its orders. Let's see, and it tells you more testimony about the angel, the watchers. All right, where's it at? Okay, well maybe it's back here. Or it's in Enoch. Yep. Where's it at? 18. 20, 21, 22. Nope. Let's see. I'll look it up here. Yep. Jubilee 7. There we go. Sorry about that. Oh, it's in there somewhere. 7. Jubilee 7. Let's see. Yeah, I did want to compare these names to Hippolytus' account because he has the names of the wives of Noah in there too, or the wives of Noah's sons. Okay, here we go. And they begot sons, the Nephilim, and they were all unlike. They devoured one another, and the giant slew the Nephil, and the Nephil slew the Eljo, and the Eljo mankind, and one man another. So, giants, Nephil, Eljo, 3 classes, right? 3 classes of giants here: elephants, camels, asses. And all the oxen feared them and were affrighted at them and began to bite with their teeth and to devour and to gore with their horns. And they began moreover to devour those oxen. And behold, all the children of the earth began to tremble and quake before them and to flee from them. Chapter 87. And again I saw how they began to gore each other and to devour each other. And the earth began to cry aloud. And I raised mine eyes again to heaven. And I saw in the vision, and behold, there came forth from heaven beings who were like white men, holy. And 4 went forth from that place, and 3 with them, 7 archangels. And those 3 that had last came forth, grasped me by my hand, and took me up away from the generations of the earth, and raised me up to a lofty place, and showed me a tower raised high above the earth, and all the hills were lower. And one said unto me, Remain here till thou seest everything that befalls those elephants, camels, and asses, and the stars, and the oxen, and all of them. The stars are the angels, the watchers. The oxen are the man, the people. 88. And I saw one of those 4 who had come forth first, and he seized that first star which had fallen from the heaven, and bound it hand and foot, and cast it into an abyss. Now that abyss was narrow and deep, and horrible and dark. That would be... Okay, let's go back. Enoch chapter 14. Let's see. Azazel, thou shalt have no peace. A severe sentence has gone forth against thee, to put thee in bonds. So that's chapter 13. And chapter 10. So he gives instructions to the angels. So it's kind of out of order, but you can see what's going on. And again, Yahuwah said to Raphael, Bind Azazel hand and foot, cast him into the darkness, and make an opening in the desert, which is Dudael, and cast him therein, and place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover his face that he may not see light. And on the day of great judgment he shall be cast into the fire, and heal the earth which angels have corrupted. See, cast into the fire, day of judgment. So you see Revelation. Okay, where's it at? Of course it don't come up. Yep, the wicked are cast into the same fire. Depart from me, you cursed, into everlasting fire. Prepare for the devil and his angels. Everlasting. Okay, in this verse right here, where's that? Everlasting, Daniel 12:2, everlasting life, everlasting contempt. You're not just going to be poof, gone. You're going to suffer. The righteous are going to rejoice. The wicked are going to suffer. If it was just poof, gone, it'd be nothing. Okay, I'm not here. Easy. Where's that? Come on now. I think it's in chapter 20. 2015. There we go. Yeah. Revelation 20:10, the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night. For how long? Poof, gone? Nope. Forever and ever. And yep, so horrible and dark. One of them drew a sword and gave it to those elephants, camels, and asses. They began to smite each other, and the whole earth quaked because of them. They started killing each other off. And as I was beholding in the vision, and you see that in, I think, Greek mythology too, the Titans and everyone, they killed each other. That's where it comes from. And as I was beholding in the vision, lo, one of those four who had come forth stoned them from heaven, and gathered and took all the great stars, whose privy members were like those of horses, and bound them all hand and foot, and cast them into an abyss of the earth. And when it says in the Dead Sea Scrolls that the giants did not escape, it's because they didn't escape. If Father executes judgment to clean the earth, do you think that the giants survived on a Nephilim ark? No, God culture, they did not survive. They were cleaned up. Giants wiped out, watchers imprisoned, Noah and his sons saved, everybody else destroyed. How they came back beats me. Probably DNA manipulation or something, with like Nimrod. Chapter 89. And one of those four went to that white bull and instructed him in a secret without his being terrified. He was born a bull and became a man and built for himself a great vessel. That's Noah. And dwelt thereon, and 3 bulls dwelt with him, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, in that vessel, and they were covered in. And again I raised mine eyes toward heaven, and saw a lofty roof with 7 water torrents thereon, and those torrents flowed with much water into an enclosure. And I saw again, and behold, fountains were opened on the surface of that great enclosure, and that water began to swell and rise upon the surface. And I saw that enclosure till all its surface was covered with water, and the water, the darkness, and the mist increased upon it. And as I looked at the height of that water, that had risen above the height of that enclosure, and was streaming over that enclosure, and it stood upon the earth, and all the cattle of that enclosure were gathered together, until I saw how they sank and were swallowed up, and perished in that water. But that vessel floated on the water, while all the oxen and elephants and camels and asses sank to the bottom with all the animals. All means all. So that I could no longer see them, and they were not able to escape, but perished and sank into the depths. And again I saw in the vision till those water torrents were removed from that high roof, and the chasms of the earth were leveled up, and the other abysses were opened. Then the water began to run down into these till the earth became visible, but that vessel settled on the earth, and the darkness retired and light appeared. But that white bull which had become a man came out of that vessel, and 3 bulls with him, and one of those 3 was white like that bull, and one of them was red as blood, and one black. So, one pure, one red, one black, not pure. And that white bull departed from them, and they began to bring forth beasts of the field and birds, so that there arose different genera, lions, tigers, wolves, dogs, hyenas, wild boars, foxes, squirrels, swine, falcons, vultures, kites, eagles, and ravens, and among them was born a white bull. That's all the different people groups. And they began to bite one another. But that white bull, which was born amongst them, begat a wild ass, and a white bull with it. And the wild asses multiplied. That's the Ishmaelites. So you got the white bull. No, the wild asses are Ishmaelites. Yeah, so it drops here to these. What? Abraham. Yep. Isaac. Ishmael. But that bull which was born from him begat a black wild boar, Esau, and a white sheep, Jacob, right? Yeah. And the former begat many boars, that would be Esau's sons, but that sheep begat 12 sheep, so that's Jacob's sons, the Israelites. And when those 12 sheep had grown, they gave up one of them to the asses, that's Joseph, and those asses again gave up that sheep to the wolves, that's the Egyptians. And that sheep grew up among the wolves, the Egyptians, and Yahuwah brought the 11 sheep to live with it and to pasture with it among the wolves. And they multiplied and became many flocks of sheep. That's when Israel went into Egypt, Mitzrayim. And the wolves began to fear them, and they oppressed them until they destroyed their little ones, and they cast their young into a river of much water. That's the Israelites, or the Hebrews. But those sheep began to cry aloud on account of their little ones, and to complain unto Yahuwah. And a sheep which had been saved from the wolves fled and escaped to the wild asses. So that's Moses. Moses, saved from the Egyptians, escaped to the Ishmaelites. And I saw the sheep, how they lamented and cried and besought their Yahuwah with all their might, till that Yahuwah the sheep descended at the voice of the sheep from a lofty abode and came to them and pastured them. This is Yahusha, Messiah. All right, Father didn't come down. He sent his son down. And he called that sheep which had escaped the wolves, and spake with it concerning the wolves. That's Moses, that it should admonish them not to touch the sheep. That's exactly what Moses did. And the sheep went to the wolves according to the word of Yahuwah. And another sheep met it, that's Aaron, and went with it. And the two went and entered together into the assembly of those wolves, and spake with them, and admonished them not to touch the sheep from henceforth. Don't touch the Israelites. And thereupon I saw the wolves, the Egyptians, how they oppressed the sheep exceedingly with all their power, and the sheep cried aloud. And Yahuwah came to the sheep and began to smite those wolves, the Egyptians. And the wolves began to make lamentation, but the sheep became quiet, and forthwith ceased to cry out. And I saw the sheep till they departed from amongst the wolves, the Egyptians. That's at the Passover. But the eyes of the wolves were blinded, the Egyptians, and those Egyptians, wolves, departed in pursuit of the sheep with all their power. And Yahuwah of the sheep went with them, that's Yahusha, as their leader, and all his sheep followed him, and his face was dazzling and glorious and terrible to behold. Yes, Messiah's face would be. Not when he was walking around as a man, but in his regular form. But the wolves began to pursue those sheep till they reached a sea of water, and that sea was divided, and the water stood on this side and on that before their face. And Yahuwah led them, their Yahuwah, or their Lord, led them and placed himself between them and the wolves, that's Messiah. And as those wolves, the word is not preserved, so I'm just kind of trying to figure out which one goes where. Those wolves did not yet see the sheep. They proceeded into the midst of that sea, and the wolves followed the sheep, and those wolves ran after them into that sea. That's the Egyptians. And when they saw Yahuwah of the sheep, Yahusha, they turned to flee before his face. So the Egyptians saw Yahusha, Messiah, and turned and tried to run. But that sea gathered itself together and became as it had been created. And water swelled and rose till it covered those wolves. And I saw till all the wolves who pursued those sheep perished and were drowned. This is added by the translator, so R.H. Charles. That would be his chapter heading. I don't think that's in the translation. But that sheep, the sheep escaped from that water and went forth into a wilderness where there was no water and no grass. That's the Israelites. They began to open their eyes and to see, and I saw Yahuwah the sheep pasturing them and giving them water and grass, and that sheep going and leading them, Yahusha, and that sheep ascending to the summit of that lofty rock, and Yahuwah the sheep sent it to them. So that sheep, Moses, Lord of the sheep, Messiah. And after that I saw the Lord of the sheep, who stood before them, and his appearance was great and terrible and majestic, and all those sheep saw him and were afraid before his face. And they all feared and trembled because of him, and they cried to that sheep with them, which was amongst them, we are not able to stand before our Lord or to behold him. Right? Remember that? If we go here, Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 5, they get the 10 Commandments, and then they say what? And you said, behold, Yahuwah our Elohim has showed us his glory and his greatness, and we have heard his voice out of the midst of fire. We have seen this day that Yahuwah doth talk with man, and he liveth. Now therefore, why should we die? For this great fire will consume us. If we hear the voice of Yahuwah our Elohim any more, then we shall die. For who is there of all flesh that hath heard the voice of the living Elohim speaking out of the midst of the fire as we have and lived? Go there thou near, and hear all that Yahuwah our Elohim shall say, and speak thou unto us all that Yahuwah our Elohim shall speak unto thee, and we will hear it and do it. And Yahuwah heard the voice of your words when you spake unto me, and Yahuwah said unto me, I have heard the voice of the words of this people which they have spoken unto thee. They have well said all that they have spoken. Oh, that there were such a heart in them that they would fear me and keep all my commandments always, that it might be well with them and with their children forever. So that's Moses. Moses is going to be an intermediary because they don't want to talk to him. We are not able to stand before our Yahuwah or to behold him, or our Lord. And that sheep which led them again ascended to the summit of that rock. That's Moses. But the sheep began to be blinded and to wander from the way which he had showed them. But that sheep walked not thereof. Crazy how they translate these things sometimes. And Yahuwah the sheep was wrathful exceeding against them. And that sheep discovered it and went down from the summit of the rock. That's when Moses went back down. And came to the sheep, and they found the greatest part of them blinded and fallen away. That's when they made the golden calf. And when they saw it, they feared and trembled at its presence, and desired to return to their folds. And that sheep took other sheep with it, and came to those sheep which had fallen away, and began to slay them. That's Moses slaying the Israelites. And the sheep feared its presence. And thus that sheep brought back those sheep that had fallen away, and they returned to their folds. And I saw in this vision till that sheep became a man, and built a house for Yahuwah of the sheep. That's the tabernacle Moses built, and placed all the sheep in that house. And I saw till this sheep, which had met that sheep, which led them, fell asleep. And I saw till all the great sheep perished, and little ones arose in their place, and they came to a pasture and approached a stream of water. Then that sheep, their leader, which had become a man, withdrew from them and fell asleep, and all the sheep sought it and cried over it with a great crying. That's Moses. And that's where the rest of the Israelites died off, except for Caleb and Joshua. And I saw till they left off crying for that sheep and crossed that stream of water. And there arose 2 sheep as leaders, Caleb and Joshua, in the place of those which had led them and fallen asleep. And I saw till the sheep came to a goodly place and pleasant and glorious land. And I saw till those sheep were satisfied. That's when they entered into the land, their inheritance. That's when they got their inheritance. And I saw till those sheep were satisfied, and that house stood amongst them in the pleasant land. And sometimes their eyes were opened, and sometimes blinded, till another sheep arose and led them and brought them all back, and their eyes were opened. That'd be the time of the judges. They kept going astray. Judges bring them back. They go astray. Same thing over and over. And the dogs and foxes and wild boars began to devour those sheep, till Yahuwah the sheep raised up another sheep, a ram from their midst, which led them. Dogs, foxes, wild boars. We know wild boars Esau, right? And I think the dogs are the Philistines. Foxes. Can't remember. Herod that fox. He calls Herod a fox. Right? Yeah, Luke 13:32. He said unto them, Go ye and tell that fox, Behold, I cast out devils, and I do cures today and tomorrow, and the third day I shall be perfected. This one here, greatest part of them blind and fallen away. That's how it'll be in the greater Moses. Yahushua comes down from the mountain. This time will be a double cup to drink. Well, they've defiled. Yeah, I think a lot of that's going to come to pass in the second Exodus. So I agree with that. But the double cup for Babylon and all that stuff, I believe applies to those that are defiling the land right now. Because Jerusalem is defiled, and the mother was always Jerusalem throughout the scriptures. And that's what I see all through the scriptures. Babylon, mystery Babylon, is the people in the land now, because Jerusalem is defiled by them. So they're going to get the double cup of his wrath. We're going to get chastised, major, but the wrath's going to fall on the people defiling his land. That's what I see anyways. And the harlot rides the beast, so you see Rome is the beast all the way to the end. So Rome can't ride itself either. Yep. So I don't know everything, but that's one thing I feel confident I understand. Could be wrong, but 89. This one here, like I said, is translated out of R.H. Charles. Happy Sabbath, Will. I'm glad hope it's a blessing to you. There's a lot to unpack. Every time I read Enoch, I learn something new. It seems like there's so much to it. Yep. But this one, LeviteBible.com, they got the people groups, so it kind of helps you understand which ones are which. I don't agree with God culture and everything, but they do a lot of good research. But when you look at their different chapters for the dream vision, they'll tell you kind of like who the different people groups are based on history and stuff. It's interesting. But if you know the scriptures well enough, you'll see things that's happened in the scriptures, and you can know a bunch of them just from the scriptures. Not sure who the fox is. And that ram began to butt on either side those dogs and foxes and wild boars, like Philistines, Esau. Not sure about the foxes, till he had destroyed them all. And that sheep whose eyes were open saw that ram, which was amongst the sheep. Oh, this one here, I think this is Saul. So he raised up a ram in their midst, which led them. That's when Saul started attacking, which was amongst the sheep, till it forsook its glory. Same thing happened with Saul, and began to butt those sheep and trampled upon them and behaved itself unseemly. That's what Saul did. So this is Saul right here. And here, the ram. And Yahuwah the sheep sent the lamb to another lamb and raised it to being a ram. So that's David. So he sent Samuel to David, and the leader of the sheep instead of that ram which had forsaken its glory. That's Saul. And it went to it and spake to it alone, and raised it to being a ram, and made it the prince and leader of the sheep. But during all these things the dogs oppressed the sheep, Philistines. And the first ram pursued that second ram, and that second ram arose and fled before it. And I saw till those dogs pulled down the first ram. The Philistines killed Saul. And that second ram arose and led the little sheep, David. And those sheep grew and multiplied, but all the dogs, foxes, and wild boars feared and fled before it. And that ram butted and killed the wild beasts. Wild beasts are people. And those wild beasts had no longer any power among the sheep, and robbed them no more of aught. And that ram begot many sheep, and fell asleep. And a little sheep became ram in its stead, and became prince and leader of those sheep. That's Solomon. And that house became great and broad, and it was built for those sheep. And a tower lofty and great was built on the house for Yahuwah of the sheep. That's the temple. Solomon's temple. And that house was low, but the tower was elevated and lofty. And Yahuwah of the sheep stood on that tower, and they offered a full table before him. And again I saw those sheep that they had again erred, and went many ways, and forsook their house. And Yahuwah of the sheep called some from amongst the sheep, and sent them to the sheep, but the sheep began to slay them. And one of them was saved and was not slain. And it sped away and cried aloud over the sheep. That's Elijah. And they sought to slay it, but Yahuwah the sheep saved it from the sheep and brought it up to me and caused it to dwell there. So he brought it to Enoch. And where was Enoch at? We saw that in Jubilees. He's in the Garden of Eden. Oh, my camera. Oh, never unplug your camera. Goofy thing. Yeah. Reset. I've been having technical difficulties all afternoon just because I unplugged my camera. Maybe it's the connection. There we go. Oh boy. Yep, camera messed up again. Trash it. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Yep. Don't unplug your computer stuff. Computers mess up. Oh man. I tried a different USB place. I was watching somebody on YouTube. I'm like, man, he keeps having problems all the time. And now look, I'm having problems. Goofy. Okay. Nope, wrong one. Filters. Edit filters. Add a filter. Chroma key. All right. Okay. Yep. Shouldn't have unplugged it. Maybe that'll work. All right, we'll go with that. All right, so yep, Elijah, one of them was saved and was not slain. It sped away and cried aloud over the sheep. Sought to slay it. He took it to Enoch, caused it to dwell there. So Elijah's with Enoch in the Garden of Eden, just like Jubilee says. And this tells you also, and many other sheep he sent to those sheep to testify unto them and lament over them, the prophets. And after that I saw that when they forsook the house of Yahuwah and his tower, they fell away entirely. And their eyes were blinded, and I saw Yahuwah the sheep, how he wrought much slaughter amongst them in their herds, until those sheep invited that slaughter and betrayed his place. And he gave them over into the hands of lions and tigers, the Assyrians, Babylonians, wolves, Egyptians, hyenas, into the hand of foxes and all the wild beasts. Now I got to all those wild beasts, and those wild beasts began to tear in pieces those sheep. That's all the people groups. And I saw that he forsook their house and their tower, and gave them all into the hand of the lions, Babylonians, to tear and devour them into the hand of all the wild beasts. And I began to cry aloud with all my power, and to appeal to Yahuwah of the sheep, and to represent to him in regard to the sheep, that they were devoured by all the wild beasts. But he remained unmoved, though he saw it, and rejoiced that they were devoured and swallowed and robbed, and left them to be devoured in the hand of all the beasts. And he called 70 shepherds, and cast those sheep to them, that they might pasture them. And he spake to the shepherds and their companions, let each individual of you pasture the sheep henceforward. That'd be the angels. And everything that I shall command you, that do you. And I will deliver them over unto you duly numbered, and tell you which of them are to be destroyed, and them destroy ye. So he cast them out into the nations. And he gave over unto them those sheep, and he called another, and spake unto him, Observe and mark everything that the shepherds will do to those sheep, for they will destroy more of them than I have commanded them. And every excess and destruction which will be wrought through the shepherds, record namely how many they destroy according to my command, and how many according to their own caprice. Record against every individual shepherd all the destruction he effects, and read out before me by number how many they destroy, and how many they deliver over for destruction, that I may have this as a testimony against them, and know every deed of the shepherds, that I may comprehend and see what they do, whether or not they abide by my command which I have commanded them. But they shall not know it, and thou shalt not declare it to them, nor admonish them, but only record against each individual all the destruction which the shepherds effect, each in his time, and lay it all before me. And I saw to those shepherds pastured in their season, and they began to slay and destroy more than they were bidden, and they delivered those sheep into the hand of the lions, Babylonians, and the lions and tigers, Assyrians, eat and devoured the greater part of those sheep, and the wild boars ate along with them, Esau. And they burnt that tower and demolished that house. And I became exceedingly sorrowful, that's the temple in Jerusalem, and sorrowful over that tower, because the house of the sheep was demolished, and afterwards I was unable to see if those sheep entered that house. All right, a little bit more. And the shepherds and their associates delivered over those sheep to all the wild beasts to devour them, and each one of them received in his time a definite number. It was written by the other in a book how many each one of them destroyed of them, and each one slew and destroyed many more than was prescribed. And I began to weep and lament on account of those sheep. And thus in the vision I saw that one who wrote, how he wrote down every one that was destroyed by those shepherds day by day, and carried up and laid down, and showed the whole book to Yahuwah of the sheep. We know who that is, Messiah, even everything that they had done, and all that each one of them had made away with, and all that they had given over to destruction. And the book was read before Yahuwah of the sheep, and he took the book from his hand, and read it, and sealed it, and laid it down. And forthwith I saw how the shepherds pastured for 12 hours, and behold, 3 of those sheep turned back, and came and entered, and began to build up all that had fallen down of that house. But the wild boars tried to hinder them, but they were not able. In the time of Ezra, when they're returning to rebuild the temple, and Esau tries to hinder them, and they began again to build as before, and they reared up that tower, and it was named the high tower. And they began to place a table before the temple, but all the bread on it was polluted and not pure. And as touching all this, the eyes of those sheep were blinded, so they saw not, and the eyes of their shepherds likewise. And they delivered them in large numbers to their shepherds for destruction, and they trampled the sheep with their feet and devoured them. Never noticed that before. Daniel 7:19, then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, that's Rome, brick in pieces, stamped the residue with his feet. Wow. And Yahuwah the sheep remained unmoved till all the sheep were dispersed over the field, and mingled with them. And they did not save them out of the hand of the beast. And this one who wrote the book carried it up and showed it, and read it before Yahuwah the sheep, and implored him on their account, and besought him on their account, as he showed him all the doings of the shepherds, and gave testimony before him against all the shepherds. And he took the actual book and laid it down beside him, and departed. Oh, thank you for the feedback on the picture and everything. So, hour 10. Yeah, I don't want to go through it too fast, so I'm going to wait and do 90 next time. Sorry about all the technical difficulties. So, I'm going to stop there. Stop at 89. And we'll continue next time. Hopefully I won't have any technical difficulties. Oops. I got my camera here. Yeah, that don't look as good. Yep. Gotta get my webcam fixed. Yeah, you're welcome. All praise to the Father through the Son. If it was a blessing to you, praise Yah. So hope this was a blessing to others and helpful. And happy Sabbath. Hope the rest of your Sabbath goes good. And I hope to see you next time. Have a good one, Rosie. Hallelujah.